Matrix is proud to be the exclusive sponsor of Shorts with Liz Clark.
Welcome back to Shorts with Liz. In this episode, we're diving into one of the most forward-looking initiatives shaping our industry today, the launch of the Health and Fitness Association's Digital Health Council. Joining me today are Noshirvani and Mohammed Iqbal, two founding advisors of the Digital Council that are helping to define the future of how fitness, technology, and preventative health come together. From wearables to AI to interoperability and policy, this new council is uniting thought leaders and innovators to make digital health a core part of the fitness ecosystem. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
So excited to have you here today. We're just going to go ahead and jump right in. Let's start with you, Al. When we look at the big picture of digital health, what do you think has really helped be the inspiration or the creation of why this Digital Health Council is coming together and why now?
Yeah, it's interesting. I founded a software company many years ago, and interoperability between systems and the member management systems was always a challenge, and data standards was always a challenge. And I remember getting a call from a national retailer, and we provided software applications to some of the largest fitness operators in the country at the time. And I got a call from a national retailer who asked me if I could provide them with data around concentrations of health club members around the country. And it occurred to me that what we have as an industry and inside of our clubs is worth a lot of money to people that are outside of our industry.
Yeah.
And as this convergence between healthcare and health club has come about, whether through policy or the proliferation of GLP-1s or a whole host of other things that are happening on the insurance side, I just think that we're at a perfect time to figure out a way to create standards, to create interoperability so that all of these non-industry folks who are interested in our data can have access to it.
Yeah, I think I've seen that since I've got here too. There definitely has been a longing and a thirst for it, and so now to be able to bring it to life is pretty exciting. I think it's been a long journey. Let's talk a little bit about how the council does plan to bring together traditional fitness organizations with innovators and wearables and AI and biotech, and maybe Mo, you could try to tackle that one.
Yeah, and I think this applies to both. To both Al and I. One, thank you so much for having us on.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
This is an incredible setup. I have a podcast too, and I'm very jealous. I was telling Al about the equipment, the production, the camera, the teleprompter that we're looking at. So this is just great.
Listen, we're an A+ organization here, the HFA. It's how we roll.
HFA
Yeah.
does things right.
Yeah.
Do things right.
That's
which
right.
which is why I'm excited, for all of us to be working on this.
Yeah.
No, and I can't thank you two enough. We've been having a lot of fun just even with getting this council really launched and the background, and it's been an important project, but you two have been fantastic partners with us on it, so thank you.
No, absolutely. I think in terms of the organizations, and Al, would love to hear from you on this one as well.
Sure.
We are incredibly fragmented, and you've done a really good job over the last few years in bringing together different segments of our industry. HFA now is just not about the small and mid-market, but you've also brought in some enterprise and larger tier one brands into the ecosystem. And as you started doing that, and as we started maturing as an industry, as consumers also were maturing, especially post-pandemic, they're now coming into the gyms, into our members' stores, being a lot more sophisticated. So they're coming in with wearables. They're coming in with AI-based workout programs. They are expecting that the equipment in the facilities will easily integrate.
Yeah.
So they may come in with an Oura ring and just assume that, well, I have a heart rate device here. This should show my heart rate on the treadmill, not just me holding on to something on the treadmill. They will do a strength program and want to get more metrics from that. And that is just the surface of it. Then you've got vendors and operators, right? Vendors are striving to build their own standards, and they're building their own ecosystems as well because they have to. But over the last 10 years, vendors went from this idea of having walled gardens, and in other words, we're going to own the ecosystem, to saying, you know what, in most gym floors and with most consumers, it's really hard to get them all into our ecosystem. Even large tech companies like Apple have opened up their ecosystem. when you look at text messaging, like if you had an iPhone, you had iMessage. If you had Android, you had another format. Apple was kind of forced to bring those together. Look at even charging. Apple had their own charging format. Now it's all USB-C, right? With all the new devices. So consumers are expecting even big companies might want to have walled gardens, but want to start bringing them together. In our industry, the same thing is happening. The third one I would say is other vendors like an Oura Ring, like a Samsung, like an Abbott, that want to access the 70 plus million members, and that's just in our country alone, who are participating within our members' organizations. And they really had no way to do that. So they were kind of going independently and forming these partnerships. So to me, that is the crux of why we need this. But Al, would love to get your perspective.
Yeah, I think there's another element of this that's really important to call out, and it's for the fitness operator. You know, our members, I own a small chain of gyms outside of the DC metro area, and one of the things that we always strive to be is we want to be sort of the single source of fitness and wellness in people's lives. And the reality is that we can only be that single source when our members are inside our four walls right now, historically.
Yeah.
And I think what the wearable devices, that whether it's Apple or Aura or Whoop or Garmin or any of these devices, really enable us to do, and whether it's our businesses or our trainers, is to really elevate the level of service that we provide our members, because we can now at least monitor or have access to, with the consumer's data, and we're going to talk about consumer privacy and the importance of that, but with the consumer's permission, we can have access to the information that we need in order to be able to elevate the level of service we provide them. Because like I said, right now, we basically lose connection with our members once they pass the front desk. There's also a whole host of elements. I mean, beacon technology, for example, is something that's been around for a long time.
What is it?
So beacon technology is basically technology that allows you to create a device or place a device inside of your gym that interacts with your phone or some other component. It could be a ring, it could be anything, that then informs the consumer, for example, as to how to use a particular piece of a particular piece of equipment. So as I'm going past the squat rack, my phone, through my app, can pop up and say, here's a video on how to properly use this piece of information, this piece of equipment, sorry. So I think that those types of technologies will really enable us to provide a better level of service. The other thing that we can do, again, using beacons as an example, is, we always talk about club layout. So my point here is that there are components of this interoperability which will give us real business information that we can make decisions on. So, the acceptance of a particular piece of equipment, or a new piece of equipment that's in the gym, or the usage of a particular piece of equipment that's in the gym, is something that you can now monitor. Before, we had no visibility into what happened after the member passed the front desk. There are a lot of folks that really want to know what is happening inside the gym, and that includes insurance providers, pharmaceutical companies, all of these, again, industry outsiders that are interested in having some level of information. And by the way, the consumer can be incentivized to do this by lower premiums and other things, in sharing their information with these organizations.
Yeah, I've talked to so many operators who are really investing heavy on even recovery.
Yeah.
And to that point, that people are coming into the gym and they don't know. Are they going to actually exercise, or are they going to recovery? And where are they spending their time? So huge opportunity. And I think you both have mentioned a lot of different brands that maybe are not sort of traditional brands that have been in our space with brick and mortars and that type of thing. But back to sort of the earlier question of why now, I think that what I'm hearing is from so many of those brands that you mentioned, there's an appetite and they want to be at the table and they want HFA to lead it. So I think that's a big differentiator that maybe wasn't the case, in years before.
There's value for every one of the sort of entities that participates. There's value to the consumer because they have that single source of truth for fitness and wellness. There's business value to the operators because they can now have more visibility into what their members are doing and how they can provide a better level of service to them. And then, of course, all of these companies who've created these, to Mo's point, these disparate, unconnected or disconnected systems, they can now sort of collaborate together and just create a much better consumer experience.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about data ownership and privacy. I know, Al, you touched a little bit on that, but how do we think that the council is actually going to be able to address some of those challenges while also still promoting innovation, interoperability, and all of that comes with it?
Yeah, I want to start by picking up on something which you said earlier. Al, you talked about how only knowing what happens within your four walls and wearables has the potential to now extend that. Here's an interesting fact. If you have a member that comes in 3 to 4 times a week and spends about 4 hours within your gym, that's only 93%, if that, of that member's time. So even if you knew everything about what that member does within your four walls, what equipment they're using, what programs they're doing, what smoothies they're buying, how much time they're spending in the gym, all the things, how do you expect to really influence health outcomes, right? You don't know how they sleep. You don't know what they're doing outside. So imagine if you only knew 7% of what someone does. You're like, make me healthier. So you need to start bringing in stuff that's happening outside your four walls, but your four walls could be the place where everything comes together. And that's the key thing. And that's been a shift that is now possible because of wearables. Given all that, when you talk about that type of data, your sleep data, other health data, weight, scan data, right? You could even know your body fat percentage, what you're doing outside, where you're walking. There could be GPS data. How is a consumer expected to trust a gym? I mean, you've got 4 locations in the DMV? 7, I'm sorry. 7 locations in the DMV. But by all regards, even though you have a technology background, you would be a small gym.
Absolutely.
And most 7 or even 10 or 15 or even 50 location gyms doesn't have the infrastructure kind of required to even understand. And they're meaningful. Like, they are not being malicious. But to trust a gym with personal data and the consumer to build on that trust is something that is very difficult to do. And for that reason, and you've seen big companies like even Apple or Samsung talk about the importance of where their data is going. So how do you build that trust? I think the association could really help by standardizing that. So one, being very clear about what data is being collected, how the data is being stored, what the data retention rules are. And some of that might be created by other organizations as well. But typically, you look at GDPR in Europe or CCPA here in the US, they're typically consumer driven, but very high level. So they'll capture things like, how do you store email addresses? How should you be storing credit cards? Where we are a little bit behind on is on a lot of the health and wellness data. We're going to get there, but what do we do in the meantime? So we've got 2 things happening. Number one, as gyms and technology companies, we kind of need that data in order to help our members achieve health outcomes. On the other hand, regulation hasn't caught up to where the wearable data is today. That's why the Oura Ring is FDA approved as an example, but people are still going to use it. The council could play a key role here. First, in building
Regulate us.
I mean, yeah, we kind of want, but regulation I feel like is always better when it starts from the private sector, rather coming from the public sector where they might not be fully informed of what our needs are. And I think that's what we're talking about here. So if we can create a standard, if we can have everyone accept, at least the member organizations accept working within those standards, then we can communicate what's happening with that information.
Yeah. So Mo, speak a little bit more about maybe some examples of how digital health can transform the member experience, like you were talking about, holistically, both inside the club or for a wellness facility.
Well, first, it's already happening, right? So over 30% of members, and I don't know, Al, about your gym, but over 30% of members today in most gyms in our industry are coming in with either a program that they got not from some newspaper magazine, but it's coming in from an influencer or an app or from the wearable and so on. About the same amount, about 34% of members coming in are tracking their workout in some sort of a wearable device, right? So you've got the 2 things happening: programming and outcomes, which typically was done with personal training or provided by the gym, or at least it was coming from these publication sources. Now it could be from anywhere. And then you look at wearables. So consumers are taking ownership of that into their own hands. The reason why it's important is it's still hard to find a trusted source. And I still think that the gym and the operator has an opportunity. We were just talking about this earlier today, to be that voice, because the member's going to walk through the doors of your gym more often than they go see their own GP, which might be only once a year, right?
Yeah.
But they're coming to the gym, maybe 2, 3, 4 times a week. There's an opportunity there to build trust and to retain a member. The other thing for operators and why it's important to really take this seriously is you want to give your members a reason to continue to stay at your gym. So you're going to do things like community and having the best equipment, doing all the things. But what if your gym down the road also has that? So how do you really personalize the experience? I think it is through wearables and it is through content and things like that. But Al, would love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, no, like I think information is power for being able to service members. For example, we know that members who participate in personal training, group exercise, are much more likely to stay with us for a longer period of time than members who just simply check in and go use a piece of equipment and then leave. And to Mo's point, creating that stickiness is really important, and data will enable our staff to do a much better job servicing the member.
Yeah. So let me ask you both, what role do you really see the council playing? I talked about, regulate us, but truly about how we're going to reshape the policy around this and around reimbursement models that exist today or that don't, to really use this and to use the standard as preventative health and measurement of that.
Let me take that. Yeah. Look, I think to the conversation we were having earlier, which is that we today have no way of providing either the member or as an industry, we don't have a way of providing either the member or any third-party cohort information with regard to what our members are doing when they're inside of their clubs or outside. These other industries, let's use insurers, for example, don't have the ability to go down to the member level to get information. That's why there's lots of organizations like Silver Sneakers programs, et cetera, that are out doing that sort of thing. If we can aggregate data through this council and provide it to the industries that are interested in data, that in and of itself will provide, for example, actuaries and the insurance industry with information that they can then use to truly validate that being a member of a gym. Everyone knows that exercising in and of itself is valuable, and we've sort of checked that box. But now being able to measure it and provide the actuarial data to validate it can have a direct impact on individual member premiums.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about this earlier, right? That the council is really looking to attract all kinds of new members to be part of this important conversation. Everything from the brands we talked about, Apple, Aura, Abbott, Nike. And how do you see some of those partnerships evolving with the relationship with the association?
Yeah, so first, I think we were at CES earlier this year. And I said, Liz, come out to CES. And I want you to...
The Consumer Electronics Show, for those that...
The Consumer Electronics Show, a show I've been going to for over 20 years, even before I was in this industry. And it's one of the largest shows in the world. It actually started first in Hong Kong, and then it came to the US. It was one building, and now it's across multiple casinos. And it truly is, it is stressful because it's hard to get around everywhere, but it truly is a place to showcase the best of what is coming and what we have today. And over the last couple of years, they've really leaned a lot into health and fitness and wellness and healthcare and innovation happening there. So you see everything from non-invasive CGMs to all of these preventative health tools. And this innovation is happening outside of the very industry that serves it. And when you look at a lot of these big tech players, they are trying to do studies, they're trying to do research and build products using the Silicon Valley approach. But really, they do not have access to our members, and they want access to our members. So, and then you look at HFA. HFA and URSA has been around for many years to serve our clubs today. But just like you change your name, we changed the logo, there's been this massive evolution to what a club needs and what members expect as well. So we have to rethink about, well, who belongs within the fold? Is it just gyms? Is it just studios? I think it goes beyond that. I think it also includes vendors. And we now have it's not just strength and cardio equipment vendors and software vendors in our fitness industry, but I think it's also the products that our members are walking into our doors with that are playing a really important role in driving towards their health outcomes and their goals. So we spoke to Whoop, we spoke to Abbott, we spoke to Aura, and a few others, and they were all like, heck yeah. Like, we didn't even know you were around. We'd love to be a part of this. We'd love to contribute to this, because the reality is they're getting the same questions that we're getting. So they're getting questions like, hey, I'm walking into this gym. I'm seeing this equipment. How can I integrate with it? Our members are asking us the same thing as well.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it was really eye-opening for me when I went to CES because, not to throw shade at CES, but it is so massive that our sector is almost not recognized when you're compared to automated vehicles and, tractors and the whole universe. And so actually, as a result of meeting at CES, we got at least a dozen of those companies that now come to our show. So I see myself continuing to go to that show to make sure they know about our show, where really, I think we can be a really important home for them. Sorry, Al, were you going to say
I
something?
was just going to add something to what Mo said. I mean, we as operators, as fitness operators, we have one of the most highly desirable demographics of any other retail sort of operation now. In fact, forgetting about digital health for a moment, we are now the anchors in a lot of real estate. Yeah,
Yep.
in a lot of malls. There are abandoned malls that are turning into wellness centers. I mean, massive wellness centers. There are strip malls that are almost exclusively dedicated to wellness brands. You'll walk into some places, Congressional Mall just up the street in Rockville, Maryland. There's an Orange Theory there, and there's a Club Pilates there, and there's a Planet there. It's crazy. That same thing holds true for all the digital players that we talked about. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
The member who has disposable income, and members generally do at certain price points, perhaps more than others, but this is a demographic that will buy watches, they will buy rings, they will buy supplements, exactly. They'll buy any device that you put in front of them. They are generally health conscious, so they're interested in, the products that GNC sells, and they're interested in the products that Whole Foods sells. We need to really dial into that and show that this is a demographic that we have some influence over.
Yeah, I mean, it's all part of the reason is when we looked at the brand of the association, health. That's why we're leading with health now.
It's speaking of Whole Foods and other stores, but also imagine what this data could mean for other companies as well. How Whole Foods open up their stores, if they knew that there's a higher concentration of fitness folks in a particular area, that's where they would place a Whole Foods, right? Today, it's really hard for them to do things like that.
Yeah. I know. And I think about even just, there's a few old Bed Bath and Beyonds that don't exist, and those of alternative like pickleball companies. It's really evolving quickly and for health, which is wonderful, right?
And even if you're looking at the big picture, Al, I know you spoke a bit about the insurance side, but the reality is we have a lot of macro pressures and headwinds happening to healthcare. So just this week, as an example, the Affordable Care Act premiums are going to go up. A lot of people have opened up their emails, and if you're on that, I mean, I read one story where someone's premium is going to go from $350 a month to $2,500 a month, as an example.
And this is after years and years of double-digit increases on insurance.
And insurance rates, and even for small businesses like both of ours, our insurance premiums are going to go up. I just opened our numbers too. And when you think about the why, it's because we are aging as a population, and our obesity rate continues to go. It's hard to manage still, even though there is improvement in that. Insurance companies don't have the data. They really don't have the data. So what they have the data is you show up and you to this once a year, or if something happens, you get your vitals taken then, but they don't know how you got there. They don't know what's next. We can provide them with that data. Now, the big win here, is if we are able, in working with HHS, if we are able to provide the data, drive to the insurance company such that they could now reward people who participate in a healthier lifestyle. So think about car insurance. If you don't get into a car accident over many years, if you don't have any at-fault accidents, you have a lower premium than someone that does. They also look at they look at a whole multitude of factors. Insurance doesn't really have that. They look at pre-existing conditions that you have. They might look at family history. But if you're doing things to make yourself healthier and so that you don't have to have that serious condition, your rate still goes up. Right. So I think we have an opportunity to influence that.
For sure.
Oh my God, it's brilliant. So as we're just getting this council off the ground now, what would you say success looks like of the council maybe a year from now? It's really bold, it's really ambitious. We've got a lot that I think we're trying to bite off here. But I'd be curious, and then how you think that will ultimately impact the Health and Fitness Association in our community.
I'd love to see the council somehow help our members grow their businesses.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the fact that our data has value from a monetary perspective, and we can partner with large companies like Apple and Aura and Whoop and others. But I also think that at the end of the day, we have a core function, and our core function is to get members in through our front doors. Yeah. And if we can do that effectively, that's a big win for us. So that's, from an operator's hat on, that's sort of top of mind for me. I think the other thing, Mo touched on it briefly, I'd love to figure out how we could bring nutrition into the mix more effectively. Yeah. That's still a little bit of a challenge because there's not a wearable device, and that's necessarily, there's some things that are tracking water intake, and you take pictures of your food, things like that. But I'd love to be able to incorporate some of those into it, because at the end of the day, nutrition is the tail that wags the dog for our industry. You can go to the gym 5 times a week, but if you're stopping at the drive-thru on the way home, you've sort of undone the good that you did. So I'd love to see that. You may have a solution for this. It looks like you might.
Yeah, well, so I think, look, this is very ambitious, and we talked about this morning, but I think there's these 3 pillars that I would like to see us execute on. The first one is, can we have data standards? One for connectivity. Yeah. Right, so just like how you have Bluetooth and you have HDMI, you have a logo. I literally would love us to come up with a logo that if a member sees that logo on that equipment, they know that they can tap, and if their wearable has it, they
Should we challenge the community? Send us logos. Send us logos.
Right, we should. Yeah, there you go. Send us logos. But we should be able to know that, okay, this indicates that if I tap my watch, I tap my ring, there will be connectivity. We will share data safely and securely back and forth to help improve your member experience. For an operator, it should lead to more engagement, more engaged members.
It's like everyone knows in their head right now, if you think about the USB logo, you can all visualize it in your head.
Yeah, if you plug this cable in, it's going to work. And that's exactly what I'm thinking about here.
Yep.
And the second one is on member data, right? So when you think about operators, one of the big points of friction is, it is just how data gets exported and transmitted. I deal with this every day with my ABC hat, reporting, exports, things like that. And it doesn't matter who you talk to, it's a challenge. So can we help in standardizing what that looks like? And that's going to help us create things like benchmarks and KPIs for the industry, which is now really, really hard to do because we're all reporting on different things. The other one is, you think about from an operator perspective, even equipment maintenance, equipment tracking, to your point, when someone walks into the gym, even consumer sentiment, how are people feeling? How are instructors doing? How's their staff doing? So I would say that's one. The second one is around data and insights. When you think about, if we can get the group of companies to come together and provide us with data, our reporting capabilities, our data and insights capabilities are going to be 10x in a year. And I think that would be wonderful to see. And the third one is, with all the advocacy work, Liz, that you're doing with your team over here, is how can we add to that? How can we give you more to, when you have this meetings at the Hill, to say, look, here's what the association is doing, and I think that could influence more the good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would like, that is such a good point, because I would love to be able to sit down at a 9:00 TV show and see the commercial for valsartan or metformin or any of these drugs that are out there that deal with diabetes or high blood pressure. Because right now, all they talk about is, take this drug and it'll do this. And oh, by the way, you got to worry about all these other things. But I'd love for these pharmaceutical companies to be able to say, this drug, along with, 3 miles of walking every week, has an exponentially better result. Yeah. That's what I'd like to be able to empower these outside organizations to be able to say.
Yeah, I'll tell you, we've worked even with legislators and with the White House on some of this, even on GLP-1 prescriptions, and to say, okay, that's fine if you're going to prescribe it, but prescribe it with exercise. But we don't have that symbol yet.
Right.
So we're close. But
that's awesome.
Is there anything we haven't touched on? I mean, I think we could do this for hours and hours, but anything maybe high level that you're excited about, where we think we can take this thing?
Well, I think we're all talking about AI and the impact of AI, and AI is good as the inputs that you give it. So when you're looking at training data, training these large language models, if we could standardize on what data we could feed AI training machines, the better the outcome is going to be. So I think when I'm thinking about this from the big picture too, the big picture is I think we can ultimately influence to make sure that it's got the right information, there's no inherent bias which happens in AI today, and that we are able to actually look to see, all right, what are we feeding this system with?
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with Mo. I mean, I think there's a huge opportunity in being able to influence the LLMs, and right now we're not doing anything about it. This is our chance.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for being here with me today and for all the hard work that's been done to get us to this point. I think fair to say that we will be announcing some leadership of this council by the end of the year, so stay tuned for that. And if there's any companies or brands out there that want to be a part of this initiative, please reach out to myself or the HFA team. We'd love to have you at the table. So thank you so much for being here. Exciting times ahead, and maybe we'll do this again in a year where we can spike the football on our success.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Matrix is proud to be the exclusive sponsor of Shorts with Liz Clark. With over 20 years as a dedicated supporter of the fitness industry, we're thrilled to continue a partnership geared towards success for all those who believe in better.